Good sign. Good sign.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Seamus, can you see us?
We can hear you. We can't see you.
Oh, that may help.
Yeah, missing one.
Hang on. Now
Oh.
you should see.
Now
There we
we can
go.
see you. Now we can see you.
Oh.
You're good.
And don't we look good?
You guys look great. Best you've ever looked.
Yeah, I bet.
Wait till tomorrow. All right. Meeting is called to order, and
Wait for this.
sorry for the delay. So we should have a roll call. Let's make sure that we have a quorum
Okay, Chair Wonderman,
here.
Here. Here.
Right.
That's you.
Yeah, he
That's
wants-
you.
yeah.
Director Intensily,
Here.
and Director Alba.
Here.
Oh,
We have a
thank
quorum.
God.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay, that was a little bit of work to get to this point, but it's all going to run smoothly after this. Let's please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand, please. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, a couple of housekeeping items. So welcome to WETA's monthly Board of Directors meeting. It's being conducted both in person and by video conference, and it is being recorded. To reduce background noise, all video conference participants will be joining the meeting in listen-only mode and will be muted during this discussion. WETA welcomes comments from the public. A public comment period will be set aside after each discussion period and will be accepted in person and by video conference. Video conference participants wishing to speak are requested to please email your name and item number you'd like to comment on to boardofdirectors@watertransit.org. If you're unable to send an email, you still will be given an opportunity to speak on the item after those who've signed up to do so. So thank you for joining us, and we'll try to catch up on our time here as we go forward and get into the guts of the meeting. So I'll keep my own report very short. We had a nice visit from Marine Log Ferry Conference here in San Francisco over the last couple of days, Tuesday and Wednesday. I would say there were 150 to 200 folks from the ferry industry around the country and around the world. The main subject was on moving towards zero and low emission ferries. And there was a lot of really good content, and I was really proud that WETA, as a host region, fit in really nicely. And Seamus made a really great report on infrastructure, and I opened it up with comments, provide some of the history of our systems and in the Bay Area and what we're up to and so forth. So I thought it was good, and we held a nice reception for the attendees on the Klamath on Tuesday night. They seemed to really appreciate it. I thought it was fun. We got to know a lot of the folks, and some whom we've met before, I've met before, but I think a lot of folks who've been involved in one way or another in either building, repairing, improving WETA's vessels and infrastructure. One thing I talked about in my comments on Tuesday morning and had some conversations around is the opportunity that zero emission vessels give us to become the creator of our own destiny, and to be able to become a Bay Area, to become a leader in the maritime industry again and a builder. I think this is economically really a great opportunity for us. It's a really great fit with California's leadership on reducing greenhouse gases and pollution. And there's no reason why a region like the Bay Area, which at one time was the leader in the world in shipbuilding, more ships were built here during World War II than I believe at any time in any place in world history. There's no reason we shouldn't be able. There are reasons, but we could overcome the reasons that exist and kind of get back in the game in a big way if in fact we have the leverage we hope to have, especially if RM3 ever favorably comes out of the Supreme Court. So that's my report, and let me turn it over to Director Intensely.
Hi,
Hi, how you doing, Tony?
very well, thank you. I would like to just say that coming down in the ferry today, I had a very nice experience. Two passengers came up, took the trouble to come up. I don't know either of them, to tell me how much they love the service and appreciate what we're doing. That's my report.
Excellent. That's always good to get that rewarding.
It is
comment.
very nice.
Director Alba.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to echo that the Marine Log Conference was fantastic to attend and to meet a lot of industry professionals. We had a wonderful tour of Dorado yesterday, the newest addition to the fleet. And I think most professionals or most conference attendees were impressed and enjoyed the beautiful weather we had yesterday afternoon. So that's it for today. Looking forward to a productive meeting.
Thank you, Director. So let me turn it over to Seamus Murphy and the staff for your reports. You provided good, good written material in the package. So let's hear from you on your perspective on these items.
Thank you, Chair Wonderman. Thank you for your help with the Ferries Conference. It was definitely an opportunity to put our best foot forward at WETA, and I think we did that. A lot of interest in what we're doing at this agency. We have, of course, an item on the agenda later, the award of the 5-year engineering contract that's going to be critical to the zero emission work that we're going to move forward with. And the interest around the industry in what we're doing on that front is really strong. This conference was a good opportunity for us to showcase that and to increase the education within the industry about how they can participate in a productive way. So I know there's a concurrent conference happening in Houston that deals specifically with hybrid and electric propulsion. Tim Hanners is there and is, I know, meeting with a lot of folks around the industry who are planning on bidding and submitting proposals for those contracts over the next year or so. So we will have a lot of work ahead of us, but a lot of opportunity in front of us as well. I want to introduce a new member of the WETA team. Jennifer Rawpatch is our new grants manager. I'm told she's sitting next to Aaron there in the boardroom. Jennifer comes to us from Golden Gate Bridge District, where she was a principal grants analyst, and we're really fortunate that we have somebody in this role who can hit the ground running, has good experience, not just in California, but in the Bay Area, and not just in the Bay Area, but specifically in the marine and ferry industry. So we're looking forward to working with Jennifer. The grants that we've been successful in securing over the last year, we're very proud of the progress that we've made. It's why we're able to be so progressive when it comes to implementing the zero emissions program. And I know Jennifer will help us move forward just as aggressively over the next several years as all of the opportunity presents itself. I want to turn it over to Raphael Regan for an update on our real-time information system. We're constantly looking at ways to improve our customer experience. The mobile ticketing app, it has been a successful part of that, and now the implementation of real-time functionality within that application is a further step. Raphael, go ahead.
Thank you so much. For 1 second. Great. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Raphael Regan. I'm the Customer Experience Specialist here at WETA, and I'm here to present the recent improvements that we've recently completed for the rider alerts and real-time trip information system that our riders are now. WETA has launched an upgraded passenger alert system and has completed integration with GTFS data that is general transit fleet specification data with our contractor Swiftly. The board approved the contract with Swiftly back in March 2022 as GTFS data with transit transit trip and real-time information has become industry standard, not only in North America, but also worldwide. The successful implementation of real-time information is now allowing our ferry passengers to more easily know when their vessel will arrive in port, regardless of delays or service disruptions that are occurring. To reach our riders in a variety of ways, real-time data is now available for consumption on a multitude of platforms, including Google Maps, Move It, Transit App, the San Francisco Bay Ferry app, of course, 5.2, and soon to be on each terminal page on the San Francisco Bay Ferry website. Here's some examples of what our new and improved rider alerts and rider information looks like, and what people see when they're on any of these platforms, including Google, Move It, Transit App, etc. But in order to make these rider alerts happen, it has completed a successful transition from the Bay Alerts text notification system, which is now inactive, to the new Swiftly rider alert system. This upgraded rider alert system works in conjunction with real-time changes dispatchers make when service is delayed or disrupted. And once dispatchers make service adjustments on their end and a rider alert is published, the schedule and trip information will simultaneously change and will be updated for all the channels previously discussed. WETA is also working closely with our consultant LinkTag to create a system that will additionally push this real-time trip information out to each digital terminal machine. So when riders arrive at the terminal, they can see exactly what time the next departure, the next boat will depart. So as we continue to fine tune and offer more ways to consume this information to our riders, our real aim is to elevate not only the passenger experience on board the vessel, but also landside as well. And so here's just a quick visual of exactly what the improvements are that we've made. Not only are people getting rider alerts now when disruptions occur in the service, but also people can see exactly what service is doing based on GPS locations, even when service is just fine. So I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great improvement. Any questions, directors?
No,
Members of the public? All right, thanks very much. This is a really nice.
Thank you, Raphael.
Too long ago, and now here it is. So it's great.
Thanks, Raphael. I think we'll have public comment on the executive director's report. We just have a few more reports to get through. The next one is an update on the Clipper Start program. Director Alba asked for an update on this program. Good timing. It is a very exciting addition to the regional improvements in fare equity across transit systems. We were really encouraged to see so much participation among transit agencies at the beginning of the pandemic and expanding or initiating participation in Clipper Start. I know we have some representatives from MTC who is responsible for administering the program. And I think I'm turning this over to Arthi to introduce this item.
Excuse me 1 second. Ms. Hammergren has her hand up. Did you want to call?
Yeah, Kelly Hammergren, did you want to ask a question, make a comment?
Yes, I wanted to make a comment. I sent a note to the board and asked if the live transcription could be activated, but the person you have running this program right now is unfamiliar with how to do that. And I was hoping that maybe someone in the room could show Melanie how to put live transcription on. It's helpful for those of us who like to follow the meeting, both by listening and by reading. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Does anybody have that capability?
Chair Wonderman, maybe we can continue with the report and Melanie can work on getting that added. And if we can't figure it out for this meeting, we will be certain to look into it for our next meeting.
Thank you.
Arthi, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Wonderman and directors. Arthi Krubanan with Planning and Development, WETA. This is an update on the Clipper Start pilot program. I'll provide a few highlights on the program and then hand it over to MTC staff who are here today to provide an update on the program evaluation and the next steps. One of the core principles that the board adopted as part of the pandemic recovery program as a strategy to appeal to a broader travel market was to participate and reinforce the goals of the Clipper Start program. As you already know, the program was launched in the middle of the pandemic, which has affected the ridership throughout the region. Looking at the Clipper Start usage on WETA, the trends observed is based on a very small number of users. The total number of Clipper Start trips taken since the program launched is on the higher end of 15,000, which is approximately 1% of the total trips taken. The majority of the usage has consistently been on the Vallejo service and predominantly on the peak periods compared to the off-peak periods. With that, I will turn it over to Elise Cohn from MTC to present the program updates and next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthi. Good afternoon, Chair Wonderman and board members. My name is Elise Cohn with MTC staff. I manage the Clipper Start customer service and verification operations. I am joined by Bill Bacon, also of MTC staff. Bill is MTC's project manager for joint transit operator and MTC fare coordination and integration work that has been ongoing in the Bay Area over the last 2 years. He will be assisting me with any questions you might have. Today, I'm here to provide an update and describe next steps for the Clipper Start program. Clipper Start is a means-based transit discount program for single ride fares on 21 transit providers in the San Francisco Bay Area. The program helps eligible low-income adults meet their crucial mobility needs. It is an innovative multi-partner program that puts transit customers first, creates new community partnerships, and provides a service to those most in need during a time of great need. To be eligible for the discount, individuals must be between 19 and 64 years old, live in the Bay Area, and have a household income of no more than 200% of the federal poverty level. Arthi said a lot of this, but Clipper Start did launch in July 2020 with 4 operators. As transit ridership fell due to the pandemic, other operators expressed an interest in joining the program and extending the pilot. By January 2021, 17 Bay Area operators were added to the pilot to support essential workers, and the pilot duration was extended to June 2023. SFA Ferry was added in November 2020, and riders who qualify receive a 50% discount on single ride fares. Outreach to engage social service agencies and community-based organizations has been ongoing since launch. These organizations are able to order posters and brochures in different languages for their clients. Also, we engage with our transit partners on a regular basis through the Clipper Start working group. Advertising has been ongoing since launch, including on-vehicle campaigns. As many applicants said, this is where they heard about the program. To date, actually almost 18,000 applications have been submitted, predominantly through the online portal. Most applications are approved as we follow up with applicants if their application is submitted with wrong proof of identity, for example. So we're close to 16,000 approved at this point. When the program started, we noticed that only a small share of card holders were actually traveling. This proportion has increased as more people feel comfortable using transit. In September, about 1,600 trips were taken using a Clipper Start card on SFA Ferry. So overall, we have 1.3 million trips have been taken using Clipper Start, and about 11,300 cards have been used, which indicates the number of people. These stats show that the people for which the program was intended to serve are applying for and using the program. The majority of applicants are users are very low income, women, and persons of color. You can also see that the annual household income for 75% of the applicants is less than $20,000 per year. The average age is 40 years, and as I mentioned, women are taking the greatest number of trips. A key feature of this pilot program is its progression from vision to policy recommendation and the achievement of 3 goals. To make transit more affordable for transit-reliant individuals making a low income, to develop and implement options that are financially viable and administratively feasible for transit operators, and to move towards a more consistent regional fare standard for fare discounts. The pilot reached the 2-year milestone in July 2022, and a formal evaluation process is currently ongoing on the attainment of these goals. ClipperStart customers are currently being surveyed through links on operator websites for their feedback on the program. The survey results and other draft findings and recommendations will be made available by the end of 2022. After that, interviews with transit operator staff, community-based organizations, and social service agencies will be conducted to inform decisions and recommendations for the future of the ClipperStart program. Possible recommendations include extending the program as a pilot, making the program permanent with the same program features and terms, and making the program permanent but with changes. And that's it. So any questions?
Thank you very much. A quick question is how is it performing compared to your expectations? I think you started this probably before some changes happened, but what's the thinking?
So our initial estimates of enrollment were around 15,000 people, and so we exceeded that number.
Going okay.
Yeah, especially given the situation, and the trend is upward, that there are more and more people using it.
Thank you. Questions or comments from directors?
No.
Members of the public?
I do have a couple of questions. I will make it very brief. Thank you so much, Elisa.
Sorry about that, Director.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to get this information, so thank you very, very much. Has there been any discussion about the using the lower than 200% of the federal poverty line as the metric? Is that consistent with Lifeline and other affordable programs, or is there consideration of going with a higher amount, say higher than say 54,000 for a family of 4?
So the 200% of the federal poverty level is consistent with Lifeline and state benefits programs, and that's why it was selected. It makes the validation process much easier because we just roll over the eligibility from one program into our program.
Yeah.
There has been discussion about raising it to some higher level. That will have to require more research into what the validation process, verification process would look like. It's possible that would require collecting more tax forms, which means MTC would be collecting more PII.
Yeah.
So it will have to be an ongoing discussion on those trade-offs.
Great. And so you confirmed that the forecasted number of participants would be around 15,000, and it ends up being around 16,000 now after a couple of years.
Yeah.
And the original pilot was it a 2-year pilot to start with?
18 months.
18 months, and it was extended to
18 months.
Oh, okay, 3 years. Yeah, with the pandemic.
Yeah, until June 2020.
Okay, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing the recommendations in the spring.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any questions or comments from the public? Anyone, you raise your hand.
Nobody has signed up.
Okay, Ms. Cohen, thank you very much for your presentation, and wish you luck, and we'll work with you as Director Alba said, for the next round to see if there's changes recommended.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last item on Executive Director's report that we wanted to highlight is an update on the Brown Act. There are some changes that have been approved for Brown Act meetings that are hybrid, like the meeting that we're having now. And want to ask Steve Miller to give us a summary of those.
Great. Good afternoon, board and members of the public. Quick sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So as Seamus has indicated, there will be some changes to the Brown Act effective that occurred in the last month since we've last met that will impact how WETA holds its meetings beginning in the new year. And we thought maybe it was appropriate to give you a little advance notice of what's going to be coming up down the pike in the next few months. As you know, in response to the COVID pandemic, the legislature enacted AB 361, under which WETA has been using these flexible remote meeting procedures. Those rules only allow for that flexibility when there is a declared state of emergency. And just a few weeks ago, Governor Newsom announced that his COVID state of emergency is going to expire on February 28th of 2023. And as such, beginning in March of 2023, AB 361 will no longer provide for the flexibility to hold these kinds of remote meetings. And as such, WETA's board, beginning on that date, WETA's board members must attend meetings in person, or else you will have two possible choices if you want to participate remotely after that time. First choice is to use the traditional Brown Act teleconference rules that have always been in place. The second choice is to use brand new alternate teleconference rules that the legislature enacted and the governor signed just a few weeks ago. And if you'll allow me like 30 seconds, I'll give you just a quick refresher on what those old rules are and what the new rules are. So under the traditional teleconference rules, board members can participate in board meetings remotely by Zoom or teleconference under certain circumstances. Number one, a quorum of the members of the board must be within WETA's boundaries, so you can't all be phoning in from Turkmenistan or somewhere far away. The published agenda has to identify the location at which a member of the board is teleconferencing in. And that agenda then must be posted at that remote location. And that location must be both accessible to the public, and the public must be allowed to participate with the board member from that teleconference location. So as you can imagine, if you're planning on teleconferencing in from your home, that presents some challenges. You'd have to post the agenda on your front door and leave your door open and allow the public to join you in the meeting. But those are the rules that have always applied, and they will continue to apply. But effective next year, there are new alternative rules which may provide a little bit more flexibility. They are in addition to those teleconference rules. They're not instead of. So under those new rules, members of the board may participate by teleconference without having to post the agendas on their front door and the rules I just described. However, you can only do that for, quote, just cause or for emergency circumstances, which are defined terms in the new statute that have to do with family or medical illness, child care needs, caregiving needs, disability, travel on behalf of WETA, other types of sickness. You must publicly disclose, in general, the reasons for the remote participation at the outset of the meeting. And depending on the reason, there must be board approval given to allow the board member to participate by teleconference. You can only use those teleconference procedures twice in a calendar year, and only two members of the board may do that at any one time. A quorum of the board must participate in person. And finally, in order for any board member to participate telephonically under these alternative procedures, the entire meeting must also be conducted via a two-way internet system like Zoom, so that all members of the public may participate remotely. So a bunch of hoops to jump through. either under old rules or brand new rules to allow board members to participate remotely. Just to emphasize that these are rules that apply to board members. Members of the public may always have been able to and will continue to be allowed to participate remotely and virtually, and WETA will retain the authority, if it so chooses, to have its meetings conducted via Zoom in a sort of a hybrid environment as we are having this afternoon. So that's a little bit of a heads up. Happy to answer any questions that come up now, or we can talk offline about it too.
So basically, Stephen, as of March, we'll be meeting in person with some exceptions.
As of March, board members must attend in person unless one of those exceptions applies. At WETA's discretion, WETA can continue to allow members of the public and staff to participate remotely. I don't know whether a decision has been made yet as to whether to do that always or under special. That's not a Brown Act requirement. That's just a operational determination.
Thank you. Directors in Tintley or Alba, questions or comments?
No.
Okay, thanks very much for the heads up. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. Chair Wonderman, you have reports in the packet that cover financial and state and federal legislative and also ridership updates. If there are any questions on those, staff can respond. Otherwise, that concludes the executive director report.
The only question I had was on the financials. How are we doing on fuel? That's such a big driver and user of our limited funding, which we'll talk about later in the show. How are fuel costs?
I know it continues to be variable. Aaron McGrath, our CFO, may want to add some flavor to that.
Thanks, Seamus. I don't have a lot to add other than we're tracking it basically every week now. We have a graph that we can actually provide at the next meeting if you'd like to see how it's generally trending on budget, but the line on the graph is going like this, right? As you're experiencing it, as the pump is how we're experiencing it. The wholesale rates tend to be lower than what you're paying. So it's continues to be volatile, but it continues to follow the trend of the $4.20 we budgeted for a gallon. So we were hoping it would drop further by now and we'd have some savings, but at least for now, we're not seeing any budget problems.
Thank you. Directors, any questions for staff on any of the items B through E?
No.
Thanks. I thought the presentations were pretty straightforward. Any member of the public here or there wish to ask a question of the staff?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Okay, seeing that, thanks Seamus and team for the updates. Appreciate it very much. Let's move on to item 6, which is speaking of Assembly Bill 361, adopt a resolution making findings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361 to hold remote public meetings. So we do this every month. I think I just need to ask for a motion and a second on it.
I'll move the recommendation.
We have a motion. I think Director Alba wants, does, she seconds. Any comments from the public on this?
No comments.
Okay, let's take a vote.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
and Director Tintley.
Yes.
Item passes.
Okay, on item 7 is the consent calendar, which includes several items, A through E. So they are board meeting minutes from the September meeting, approving the board of directors meeting schedule for next year, 2023, approve amended and restated Clipper memorandum of understanding with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and Bay Area Transit Operators, authorize release of requests for proposals for independent year and audit services, and authorizing release of a request for proposals for human resources consulting service. So all of this material was included in the packet. Do any directors wish to remove an item for separate consideration?
No,
Okay, any member of the public?
No one has signed up to speak.
Okay, if not, let's take a motion on the consent calendar.
I'll move adoption of the consent calendar, particularly the schedule of meetings for 2023.
Oh, I love that you get to do that.
I do too.
We're gonna expect you to be there if you make that motion. You have a second, Jessica?
Yes, she did.
We do. Can you call roll on?
Chair
on the
Wonderman?
consent calendar? Yes.
Director Alba
Yes,
and Director Tinsley.
Definitely, yes.
The consent calendar carries.
Okay, item number 8, which is about the same number of years it takes to get a project done. Redwood City Memorandum of Understanding.
That's right.
Chair Wonderman, members of the board, Kevin Conley, Manager of Planning and Development. The staff is recommending approval of the memorandum of understanding during the planning and design stages of the Redwood City Terminal project. This follows on a previous memorandum of understanding between the 3 parties involved. Project development, the city of Redwood City, the port of Redwood City, as well as WETA. The project is wholly funded by Measure A sales tax revenues from San Mateo County. And there's $5 million available this next phase, which is expected to last somewhere around 36 months, depending on the issues. There, as you can see in the packet, there's letters of support from familiar faces and longstanding supporters of the project. I will mention that Director Moyer at our last discussion of Redwood City asked that we see some support from other employers from the business community. We have sought those and have yet they've thus far declined to submit letters of support. So that will be a challenge for the project, honestly, moving forward. And there's other challenges. There's things like dredging, there's permitting, there's a relationship between future operations and recreational users of the terminal. And that's what this process is designed to do, is to investigate fully all of those issues, allow for thorough study, and then allow conclusion consensus. So with that, I'm concluding remarks and answer any questions.
Yeah, could you repeat what you said about seeking funding from other sources and they're not willing or support?
I didn't say anything about funding. What I said was we sought letters of support for this action from major employers from that area.
Are we expecting major employers in that area to do anything in support of the project? If they're not willing to support letters, that doesn't sound too good to me.
I'm noting it because Director Moyer did specifically request that we seek them out, and we did. We have yet to receive them from other employers. Other than that, I will say that we have a core group of supporters that have consistently supported the project, and they're online with us today as well as they've submitted.
Well, I intend to certainly vote to approve the new memorandum of understanding, but I am very concerned about that issue because right now, Redwood City and Port and so forth, they're putting in a lot of money into this process, this planning process and what have you. And if we don't have the funds with if Measure 3 doesn't pass and we aren't able to do this, I'm very concerned about the amount that they've committed and what we may be asked to commit that we won't have. So I'll just say it that way.
I think I would say, if I understand it correctly, in this phase is really the planning and, the sort of technical view of the project, which I guess I have a question is, so in doing the environmental phase, will the consultants be reaching out to employers to ask questions about demand and use, or is that outside the environmental review?
there'll be an update from the work that we've done thus far. We did for our business plan as well as our feasibility study. We did ridership estimates. And certainly the world has changed. And so there will be some level of outreach to employers and stakeholders to find out what the future holds in terms of employment and ridership and food benefits. So yes.
As I recall, weren't the ridership projections based on pre-pandemic conditions?
That's
And we've not seen anything revised since then.
That's correct. Very few projects are really up to the point at this point where they can.
Yeah, I understand why.
I would say, at this point, we're, I think I spoke in favor of this project my first week on the board, which seems now like many years ago. And we've made a lot of progress
Yes.
on it over time. It's not the easiest one,
No,
but there's a lot of support for it. As we can see, and it's been very consistent. And the situation we're in, not really post-pandemic, as Seamus's wife would have tell you, is one of flux. And so, since we're in a world of long-term planning and projects, based on what's expected in this phase, I think, we're not at the phase of paying for it yet. We haven't, that comes later. So we're at the phase of really finding out whether the environmental related concerns, overwhelm our desire to see this project go forward. Not even so much relative to the demand, but the project, I think, on its own merits. And so I think it's appropriate to go forward on the project. So we do have Jessica, if it's okay, we have Assembly Member Kevin Mullen on the line, and he has to leave at a time certain. So if you don't mind, I'm going to turn it over to Assembly Member Mullen for a comment.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me this time. My name is Daniel, and I'm a field representative here at Assembly Member Kevin Mullen's district office. And I would like to speak in support of this memorandum of understanding with the Port of Redwood City. There's a critical need for an alternative transportation mode to the peninsula and South Bay area. San Mateo County has the highest proportion of commuters that cross county lines in the Bay Area, with 62% of residents commuting out of the county for work and 63% of the workforce living outside of the county. So ferry service can provide a feasible form of transportation to a county that has created 11 new jobs for every 1 unit of housing over the last 10 years. Having ferry service at the Port of Redwood City would provide another means of public transportation to large employers like WETA, Google, Kaiser Permanente, Stanford, and other regional companies, and serve the transportation needs for future economic development. And the Office of Assemblymember Mullen was proud to secure $5 million in state funds in the 2021-2022 state budget for the construction of the Redwood City Ferry Terminal. And voters have consistently supported local measures to increase transit funding, including 2004's Measure A for designated funding for ferry service to Redwood City. In addition, Assemblymember Mullen advocated for dedicated funding for ferry service as one of the lead negotiators in his legislation that created 2018's Region Measure 3. So the Office of Assemblymember Mullen urges the WETA board to continue the momentum of securing transit alternatives for the region by approving the Memorandum of Understanding for ferry services in Redwood City and advancing the project. And we'd like to give you guys a huge thank you for your consideration and your leadership and support and supporting transportation vision that meets the Bay Area's transportation, climate, and commuting needs now and in the future. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Mr. Banish. I'm glad we got you in under the wire there. Director Alba, did you have comments?
I can hold off until after all public comments.
Sure. So are there other members of the public? I see a couple of hands raised. So Lorraine Castro from Redwood City, go first, and then Emily Lowe.
Thank you, Chair Wonderman. Good afternoon. and directors. My name is Loriana Kastrop. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We got you.
Thank you. I served this year as vice chair of the Redwood City Board of Port Commissioners. And as you all know, I am a longtime supporter of the expansion of public ferry service to the South Bay. Thank you for your consideration of this MOU today. The recent earthquake centered near San Jose provides a distinct reminder that it is critical for public safety to have waterborne public transportation assets serving the South Bay in an emergency. The Port of Redwood City serves as the designated staging area for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and is experienced in preparation and exercises for multi-agency response teams. Our most recent live multi-agency drill was held this past September. We thank you for moving forward on the MOU on this important infrastructure project for public safety, as well as for the environmental benefits and improved opportunities for recreational and commuter transportation. And I would like to take just a moment to address Director Moyer's and Director Intently's concerns regarding individual company support. Now, we do have very broad company support by expressed by SEMCETA, as well as the San Mateo Chamber, the county chamber. And those are the leadership of those organizations is a broad array of the biggest corporations in San Mateo County. So that there is business support for this project. The individual employees that we talk to really want to know more specifically what's going to be asked of them. So that's one thing that we're going to have to address moving forward. And the other thing that is happening on an individual level, just to speak for myself personally, is that a lot of times we don't get the WETA board agenda until like maybe a week and a half before your board meeting. And that's a little bit of a scramble to talk to to get to the highest levels of the individual employers to get a letter of support. So having a little bit more lead time to tee up what you need and how you need to see it would be very helpful to us when we approach individual large employers in our area. But I have no doubt, having spoken to people what do you want to say, not on the record, off the record, that they will step up when the time is right. And I have no doubt about that. So I'd like to just feel that take this moment to express the feeling that we are very well supported on this project by the large employers in our area. And I'm happy to answer questions offline or in the coming weeks by WETA as to who we can reach out to. So thank you very much for your attention to this and for passing this MOU.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Kastrup, and thank you for your consistent support. You always show up, and I think it's really, I think part of the reason that we're here is because the forces of Redwood City and San Mateo County Peninsula have been really behind this project from the beginning and throughout. Thank you. There's Emily Loper from the Bay Area Council.
Good afternoon, directors. Emily Loper with Bay Area Council. So as many of you know, we have a robust waterfront mobility committee of our members here at the council, and it's comprised of a lot of large waterfront employers that have an intense interest in expanding ferry service around the region, including to Silicon Valley. So this Redwood City terminal project has long been a priority for those members, and it would finally bring a water transit option to Silicon Valley. Some of those members are those that have been mentioned already: Google, Meta, Kaiser, Stanford. A lot of them have property either right at the proposed site at the Port of Redwood City or in the neighborhood, and there's lots of new mobility options that can provide last mile connections to a lot of those campuses. We know from previous studies that there's significant demand for this service, both to connect Redwood City to San Francisco, but also to cut out the bridge commute and connect to the East Bay. So also, as was mentioned, voters have consistently supported this project, both in back in 2004 with the San Mateo County sales tax measure. And then, of course, it was specifically called out in the RM3 expenditure plan. So just on behalf of the committee of this Waterfront Mobility Committee of our members, I wanted to show our strong support for moving forward with the planning and design for this project. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Loper. Appreciate that. Director, I don't see any other hands raised. Do we?
Greenway? Greenway.
Oh,
He did
Greg
raise his hand.
Greenway. Yeah, okay. I don't see the hand, but I see you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't find the little hand icon on my interface. Yeah, good afternoon all. I am Greg Greenway speaking for two organizations, Chamber San Mateo County and Seaport Industrial Association, which is a group that represents the industrial businesses in the port area, Redwood City. Both of the organizations submitted letters encouraging you to approve the MOU, and I want to reiterate that. I can't speak directly to the difficulty in getting letters from large employers, but I've definitely heard consistent support from my colleagues on the Chamber board, including those companies that Daniel, Assemblymember Mullins representative mentioned, all of which are, within 2 or 3 miles of the project site: Google, Stanford Medical, Kaiser, Meta, and the Chamber itself represents about 1,500 members. So there's been strong and long time consistent support. I think I can help get letters from them, so I'll work on that. There's definitely a lot of enthusiasm for bringing the ferry to Redwood City. It's been there for a very long time. I personally go back to the early mid-2000s when there was a group of us who were advocating for water transit in San Mateo County. At that time, we all agreed to throw our support behind service in South City first, with the idea that Redwood City would follow in its wake. The original plan was that there would be service in Redwood City in 2012. So after that long and sometimes frustrating history, it's very encouraging to see the progress that you all are making more than a decade later. It makes the community, I can tell you from personal experience, feel like this project is real. And it makes me feel very good personally to be able to share that good news in the various roles that I have. As you know, ridership study shows that there'll be plenty of demand for the ferry. The city is a strong supporter. And as was mentioned, our County Transportation Authority has designated already local funds for the project, has for a long time. And so it's going to take off and be highly successful as soon as it works its way through the process. Commissioner Kastrup mentioned this, but since emergency is in the agency's name, it's also worth noting that the Port of Redwood City is a FEMA designated staging area for the region, and being able to bring supplies and people and emergency responders by water, if, for example, bridges go down, is all part of the big picture, as you know. So both of the organizations I'm representing today have total confidence in your leadership, in your staff. We appreciate your hard work, and I'm just here to ask you to please support the MOU. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Greenway. Melanie, other members of the public signed up?
No one else has signed up.
Anyone else wish to speak who didn't sign up? Let me turn it over to Director Alba. I just strongly sense you have a point of view on.
I will be very brief. I couldn't agree more with the support letters. I think the timing is absolutely perfect to continue with this next phase of the project. It doesn't mean any commitment, but it means moving forward at a time of continued ridership growth in our transit industry. And whether it's built and ready for operations in 3 years or in 8 years, having this work done we should get it done so that we're ready to move when funds and ridership is available.
Thank you. Thanks, Director Alba. Okay, or why don't we take a motion?
Director Alba
Yep.
probably could.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second it.
and a second. And any other members of the public want to comment? Okay, let's call the roll on the Redwood City MOU.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes,
Director Alba,
A heartfelt yes.
and Director Tinsley.
Yes.
Okay, the item passes.
great. Thank you very much. Item number 9, authorize revised sea change hydrogen powered vessel demonstration project.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wonderman. I'll take this one. The sea change has been discussed by this board on several occasions. It's the world's first 100% hydrogen powered fast ferry. It is construction of the vessel is complete. It is in Seattle, in the shipyard, waiting to be delivered to the Bay Area so that we can operate it. And the board approved the agency operating it for a 6-month duration, and staff worked diligently to raise sponsorship funds that would cover the costs of those operations. We budgeted a smaller amount in the FY22 or FY23 rather budget to cover a portion of those costs for WETA. Last month or 2 months ago, I reported on some of the complexities of getting this vessel out of the shipyard. It has to do with some of the financial considerations of the owner and some of the investment that has been made in the project already needing to be expanded to cover the final costs associated with construction of the vessel. That solution is still pending, but since that report to you, there are new opportunities for potential sponsors to emerge and support a longer duration of operation. If there is a minimum 3-year lease that's secured for the operation of this vessel, that would trigger expanded investment by the parties that are already invested in the project to cover the costs of getting it to the Bay Area. And we've been talking to several companies in the Mission Bay area who are interested in participating as sponsors in this effort. It's not a sure thing. We are working to pull this together sort of in the final hour, but your action today would preserve the opportunity for us to be able to do this at minimal cost to WETA. The action that you would approve today would limit the cost to WETA at $500,000, which we think is a fair cost and reflects certainly the value that we would get as an agency for being able to operate this vessel, learn from it, and do all of the things that we hope to do through our 6-month demonstration proposal. If you approve this action today, we would be able to enter into the necessary agreements, including an amendment to our operating contract with Blue and Gold that would allow this effort to proceed. And it's important to do it today because there is a deadline that's tied to the financing of this vessel at the end of the month. We don't have a board meeting before that deadline would pass. And so your action would allow us to comply and take these actions before the deadline without us needing to call a special meeting of this board to potentially come together in the final hour and approve this same action for us to do this. If nothing comes together that would result in WETA being able to do this under the conditions that the staff report outlines, then we will look for the next opportunity to be able to do this. The sea change vessel is not going anywhere. It will eventually be in operation somewhere. We'd of course like it to be in operation here in the Bay Area, and your action today would allow us to preserve the opportunity pending further action that needs to occur in the near future.
Okay, thank you, Director Murphy. So just for clarification, so what we approved previously was focused on a 6-month trial, and now we're moving to 3-year commitment with some additional funds, or is it still a 6-month trial? You know, what are we actually signing up for?
This would expand the 6-month trial to authorize a 3-year demonstration project, which is the minimum amount of time that would be necessary for the vessel to be released from the shipyard and delivered to the Bay Area.
So for $325,000, we got 6 months, and for $500,000, we get 3 years.
That is one way to look at it.
That is a way to look.
Pretty good deal.
It's a good deal. Okay, so in terms of, my view of this, if I may, I think it's, this is a really important opportunity for us to show leadership in the world of zero emission vessels. I realized this is the first of its kind, and which makes it exciting, maybe limited in some ways in terms of its speed and some other things, but I was really impressed with Joe Pratt's presentation on the potential of hydrogen as fuel and at the Marine Law Conference. I think that for us to be able to demonstrate this along the piers of San Francisco would be a real feather in our cap. And as you may recall, I discussed this with Governor Newsom last year. I guess maybe it was earlier in 2022. And he was very excited about it, and I probably built up his expectations. So I wish it was in a Bay Area shipyard, because if it was, we'd have a lot easier time probably raising the capital for it. But it is what it is. So I would just urge that we, I'm going to vote in favor of this, and my hope is that we can do a really good job convincing some key players that it's in their interest to be part of it, so that we can get it moving and sent our way. So with that, any questions from comments from directors?
No, I'd like to move the recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion. Director Alba.
Second, and is there, we can do public comment first?
Did you want to second Tony's motion, or?
Yep,
you're not
I
ready?
did. Yep.
You do. Okay, go ahead. So let's move to public comment. Melanie, are there any folks who signed up?
I
to-
haven't received anybody who wants.
No,
one.
I don't know. Does anyone wish to comment on this? If you have thoughts about it, please do. Okay, let me turn it back to you, Director Alba.
Yeah, I appreciate the staff report. Especially that we're now looking at instead of a very generic demonstration project, 6 months with limited application. Now we're looking at something that's extended and serves the entire day, potentially between 7:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. and that it serves a purpose. And I think absolutely, I couldn't agree more that this would be fantastic to have on the Bay. I just hope we can figure out all of the funding or, get some clarity on the funding situation and make this happen. The sooner the better. It seems to be a great fit for the purpose that we now have for it. So thank you.
Yeah, I think, I'd say, we as directors have some role in this. And I know Emily Loper on our team at BAC was helpful in generating some of the initial contributions, because we think this is a real great opportunity. So, maybe there are ways we can participate in the next few weeks, see what we might be able to come up with. Any other comments from the public? Director Tinsley, you made a motion.
No.
Well, there's a second. So please call the roll on item 9, the sea change.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
and Director Tinsley.
Yes.
The item passed.
Okay. Great. Item 10, approved contract award to Aurora Marine Design for on-call engineering support services.
Good afternoon, Chair Wonderman, members of the board. Tim Hanners, Manager of Operations and Maintenance, live from Houston. As Seamus mentioned, me and Jeff Power here at the Hybrid Electric Show, trying to get support for our RFI that we just released, and talking to a lot of different vendors and operators, and there's a lot of excitement in the industry right now. Not only for us as an agency, but this entire region too has a lot of movement and are looking for ways to electrify their fleets and lower the greenhouse gases. So lots of excitement here. It's great to be here. Today, I'm asking the board to recommending the board to approve a contract award to Aurora Marine Design for on-call professional engineering consulting services to support ongoing ferry system capital programs, planning efforts, construction management, and vessel design for a period of 5 years. The annual budget is set at $400,000 with a not to exceed amount of $2 million over a 5-year period. We received 3 great proposals from 3 very qualified firms: Aurora Marine Design, Art Anderson, and Elliott Bay Design Group. Based upon the evaluation and scoring of the proposals, the evaluation committee identified Aurora Marine Design as the highest ranked, most qualified firm to perform the work. Aurora Marine Design has extensive experience working on similar projects for WETA over the past decade and other marine organizations. This work under this contract will be assigned as needed on a task order basis and may include several services related to planning, engineering, solicitation, development, administration, marine vessel and facility construction management. As Seamus mentioned earlier, this contract's going to allow us to work with a single qualified firm to put this puzzle together as we transition to zero emissions. And it allows staff to work fast, work with one group as we tackle these several challenging projects that we have ahead of us. 2 things that we will be starting immediately are the construction of a new electric float and the design of a small electric ferry.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hanners. Quick question on, I don't think anyone, it's great that you got 3 bids. We got 3 bids, and I don't think anyone questions Aurora. Do they, or does anyone here have the experience to help out? On some of the, a lot of this is so new. Regardless of the experience they've had, will they have the technical expertise to help us design and move ahead with applications on vessels which haven't really been designed before?
Yeah, absolutely. Aurora Marine Design is a naval architecture firm, and they have experience. They worked with us and Golden Gate and several other marine, specifically ferry operators. They've been working with WETA for the past decade, and they have a clear understanding of the way that our fleet works and what our goals are. They've also been the leads on the electric study that we're doing, that we're 1.5 years into. So that also gives them the ability to hit the ground running when it comes to what we want to do and what we need to do to meet our goals. In addition to their knowledge, a lot of the work is going to be reaching out to other firms and other agencies and other parts of the world to gain the experience that they've already had. So it's not just the team from Aurora, but if there's companies or designers out there that have done this, we're going to reach out to them, and Aurora is willing to do that too, so that we can learn from those experiences.
Great, thank you. Any questions from directors, comments on this item?
No.
Just very quick, I also appreciate all the hard work that went into selecting Aurora for this important matter. Channeling Director Moyer here, I want to ask a question about DBE participation. And since it's a 5-year contract, I understand that Aurora itself is an SBE and that there is a DBE subcontractor already on the contract. I'm hoping that Aurora representatives can find potential subcontractors that would potentially go through the DBE process in order to increase the DBE participation through this on-call contract. I think these on-call contracts, the longer projects with engineering and oversight and all of that could be very suitable for DBE participation. And we know that it takes time. It's 6 to 12 months to get through the process, but it might be worth Aurora reaching out to some of their smaller subcontractors to see if they're interested in going through that paperwork right now.
Yeah, so we worked with Aurora and talked to them about DBE specifically with Lauren, and they actually do have a DBE subcontractor, but because this is it's a task order basis, we are not going to be able to know that exact amount until we develop the work scope. And so we are working towards that goal, and Aurora is motivated to help us meet those.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that they can do more since it's a 5-year contract and potential for adding additional subcontractors. That now is the golden time for potential contractors to apply and become certified DBEs. And so that they can then, they can take advantage of that over the coming years.
Absolutely. Monique would be proud.
Hope so. Thank you. Did we take a motion on this? Melanie?
No, you want public input
You
first?
want to go ahead?
I'll make the motion.
Director Tinsley moves.
And second,
Keeping to today's trend, Director Alba seconds. Any member of the public want to comment on item number 10?
Nobody has signed up.
Anyone interested in making comment? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Director Alba,
yes.
and Director Tinsley.
Yes.
The item passes.
And Mr. Hanners, let your friends where you are know. Go Phillies. Yeah. All right. Number 11, authorized release of draft 2022 short-range transit plan for public comment.
Good afternoon, Director. Gabriel Chan, WETA. Oh, yeah.
Did you lose it? Maybe reconnect your internet. Oh, there you are.
Success.
Give me just a minute, Gabe.
You can leave the Phillies comment out.
Go ahead. Okay. Hang on just a second. Oh. Oh. It should not be up.
There it is.
So staff is seeking to release the 2022 draft short range transit plan for a 30-day public comment period. And I just wanted to give kind of an overview of the results of the planning process and full document that's attached in the board pack. So firstly, this is an exercise that MTC requires of Bay Area transit operators every 5 years. And this iteration of the SRTP has a modified approach. It's a shorter planning horizon. It's a 5-year planning horizon instead of the traditional 10-year planning horizon. And that's because the recent pandemic, MTC saw that operators needed to basically reduce the planning horizon to make it easier for them. So with this revised approach, instead of the traditional kind of lengthy document that FTC has required of operators, it's more concise and includes 3 different planning horizon scenarios that outline different revenue projections for the next 5 years. So with that, the deliverables for the Orange Transit Plan include a full document as well as a data template that includes the details of the financial and ridership projections going out to FY 2020. So the action today, seeking authorization for release for public comment for a 30-day period. That's happening in November right now. And then final board approval for the full final document is going to occur sometime in December or January, once we have received all public comment and made any revision to the full document. So here's an overview of the 3 revenue planning scenarios that MTC has required of Bay Area operators. WETA has also added an additional 4th scenario because of the uncertainty surrounding regional measure 3. So I'll quickly run through right now. So scenario 1 is titled Robust Recovery. This assumes that the agency recovers 100% of pre-pandemic ridership, and then also 100% of non-fare box revenues for the next 5 years. Scenario 2, revenue recovery with fewer riders, assumes about a 50% ridership recovery, which is consistent with some of the other regional transit operators like Barton Caltrain, where they are now, and then also 100% non-fare box revenue. And then for scenario 3, that assumes that we are at 85% ridership and non-fare box revenue recovery for the next 5 years. So an important distinction between scenarios 1 through 3 and then scenario 4 is that we're assuming regional measure 3 comes online in fiscal year 25 for the first 3 scenarios. So some assumptions that we had to make for scenario planning exercise. You assume that 1, the fleet expansion and the terminal expansion continues on schedule through FY 28. So that would mean launching new services at Treasure Island, Mission Bay in 26, Berkeley in 27, and Redwood City by 28. And then in scenario 4, we assume that because there's not, we don't have regional measure 3, we're assuming that we are only able to open Treasure Island service for the horizon. And then for the finance and budget assumptions, we assume that we're exhausting any remaining federal relief funds in fiscal year 24. And as I mentioned before, RM3 is available in 25. And then ridership growth continues at rates that are outlined in the WETA business plan. And then those ridership projections for the new services are also consistent with what's. So here's just a quick service summary of what we're expecting for the planning horizon out to FY 28 for scenarios 1 through 3. We're assuming that we can open service to Berkeley, Redwood City, of course, in scenario 4. Without regional measure 3, we probably won't do that. And then here's a summary of the scenario planning results. So for scenarios 1 through 3, we're basically looking at the percentage of the kind of full expanded service that we're expecting to deliver given the different revenue projections that MTC has outlined for us. So under scenario 1, which is the most optimistic, we have exceptional ridership recovery as well as regional measure 3 and 100% of other non-fare box revenues available to us. And so this basically allows WETA to operate the full expansion services that we have planned for FY 28 with no shortfall anticipated. For scenario 2, ridership recovery stalls at about 50%, which is kind of where we were a few months ago at the end of 2021. And we would see about a $5 million shortfall in fiscal year 24, And we'd also be unable to run full Berkeley and Redwood City service by fiscal year 28, just given that we don't have the wouldn't have the operating funds to do so. And so this scenario, I think staff thinks that this is a bit too pessimistic. So something that's a little bit closer to where we might realistically fall is scenario 3, where we have about 85% ridership recovery and 85% of non-fare box revenues. Well. So we'd still experience shortfalls in fiscal year 24 and 28, but they wouldn't be as drastic. Looking at about $2 million shortfall, I think. Right.
A quick question, when it says underestimates non-fare box, why underestimate it?
So MTC basically gave us a blanket kind of 85% non-fare box revenue recovery for this scenario. But realistically, just given the funding sources that we have, Measure J, for example, that's going to come in kind of where it's been projected for the past. Then with regional Measure 3, if it comes online, we're going to get the full amount. We're not going to get 85%.
Yeah. But we're constrained by the sort of the rules of, okay.
So it's the guidance that MTC put out, we have to adhere to guidance. So that's what's, yeah. And then the fourth scenario that we came up with is without regional Measure 3, and this is kind of presents a very significant shortfall in fiscal year 25. It would result in about a 40% service cut to existing service.
Wow.
If that's the path that the agency wants to take. Cutting service is not the only tool that the agency has in its toolbox to make up lost revenues. But if it were just to be a service cut, then it would have about 40%.
Can I ask another question? We've halved our fares. Is this assumption that we raise the fares back up or that we continue where they are? Or
So this
something in
assumes
between?
that our fares stay where they are, but they escalate with inflation. So about 3% year over year.
Okay.
We didn't look at what would happen if we were to reset fares back to the pre-pandemic levels. I imagine revenue would be higher, but
Ridership might be lower.
yeah, right.
Yeah. More than likely. Thank you.
So that concludes the summary of draft SRTP. Any questions?
So this goes out as a proposal to the public. They make comments and it'll come back in December or January.
Yeah, probably looking at coming back to the board in January with the final document. So just to clarify, this whole exercise is kind of FTC requirement. So we're constrained by sort of the parameters that they've thrown us. So these scenarios are not necessarily reflective of our own revenue and ridership projections. Kind of what FTC has said, and then we're applying those to our service.
So did these assumptions apply across the board to transit agencies, or did MTC prescribe different levels for different agencies based on performance?
Yeah, so every agency has the same parameters.
The same.
Under, so it's supposed to kind of standardize everything there.
And from, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but is there any comment on how other agencies perform under these scenarios? I know the regional Measure 3 applies to us and really probably AC Transit a little bit, but
yeah. So I haven't personally seen, but maybe site.
We haven't seen the specifics, but Kevin and I both participated in the regional work groups, and it's a similar situation at most other agencies. From
Director Alba, any questions or comments beside cross your fingers and hope things go well?
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, I had the same question as, sorry, Tony, did I cut you off?
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
I had the same question as Jim did in regards to whether this was based on the pandemic recovery program fares or our pre-pandemic fares. So I'm happy to hear that they're based on the pandemic recovery program fares. I don't know if that needs to be clarified in the SRTP, so it's clear to others who are reviewing it too. And even if Farebox is just one of many metrics that we're interested in, I would have loved to have that line item added to the tables, just to look at the difference between pre-pandemic and what it lands at, 20 to 30% or in these tables so that you can see the difference, because I think we're looking at a slightly different business model using the the pandemic recovery program than the prior model, which was where we had a fare box of 70% or somewhere in that range. But otherwise, it's great work, and it's also good to note that this is not necessarily WETA's projection, but what MTC is requesting, and also when the final product final plan is delivered in January, it might be good to just have some comparison to some of the other agencies as well, just so that we can see, the board and the public can see how we compare to some of the other systems. And then we just fingers crossed for some additional ridership recovery and RM3 funds to become available starting hopefully next year.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see, Director, is that, WETA has something the other agencies don't have in scenarios 1 through 3. So no one else has regional measure 3 coming online in 2025. So their cliff is going to be way more dramatic than ours, and we're pretty unique on that. So I haven't seen the numbers, but I know that all of the agencies are fairly beside themselves, looking not too far down the road at this point.
Yeah.
And and thinking about solutions, going to the state, figuring out what a solution set looks like for this for agencies in general. And I'm sure Seamus and his team are involved in those discussions, which affect us too. And of course, we don't know on regional measure 3. We won't know until we know where the court comes out on that. And so we could end up very much, I think, we're looking at a 40% cliff. I think some agencies I've heard bigger number. So that 40% for us is if RM3 doesn't go our way. Other comments? Anything else, Director Tinsley or Alba? Members of the public, anyone wish to speak?
I think there's a Kyle Maudlin. Right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Kyle, go ahead, Mr. Maudlin. Yeah.
Thank you. Just want to say I'm a writer from the Richmond Ferry. Big fan. I just moved here with my wife and had no idea it existed, but really love the service so far. I just wanted to say that I really like scenario planning. I'm an analyst over here at Salesforce, so I really like those charts that we were looking at. I was curious to understand, or not understand, but learn more about what levers we're using to increase ridership recovery. Right now, we have a bunch of scenarios, but it's not really showing how we're going to sort of avoid that cliff fall. Hoping that we get back to pre-pandemic levels is, the goal, but want to know, is there a product roadmap for the app? Is it partnerships with maybe like hotels, bed and breakfast? Is it marketing, advertising, and so forth? That might not be the right question for right now, but just sort of what's on my mind after going through those slides.
It's a perfectly good question. So my suggestion would be send it out to Mr. Benioff and have him strongly urge you and your colleagues to go back to work in person in downtown San Francisco, because that's, the big problem that we have is that we lost a huge portion of our riders to remote work. Even after the pandemic waned. And so, I think we're going through this process of seeing what the new reality is. But as you know, the occupancy, the actual unleased occupancy in the area around Salesforce Tower is in the high 30s at this point. It's called SF Yerba Buena. And those aren't the people who aren't coming, that's actually unleased space, space that's on the market for lease or sublease. And Monique Moyer could tell you better than I could, but the actual percentage of occupied space on a daily basis is way below that. And on Monday and Friday, it's negligible. So, that's really I think that arbitrage is being led by the employees who really don't like the idea of going back for myriad reasons why they don't want to go back to work. And none of the reasons for them not going back to the work is that the ferries offer really poor service and is unpleasant. The ferries system is a very highly rated form of getting back to work, but in some of the other transit systems, not as much. And then there's a lot of other issues, of course. It's a complex series of issues, but that's an important conversation for folks who want to see the transit system of the Bay Area not fall off a cliff, to have that conversation, because staying home has an effect on others, not just transit systems and the people who work for transit systems, but the people who work in supporting the businesses and small businesses in cities are getting mauled by the economic effects of this. And so this is a very different problem. So the question you ask is really good. And we're happy to work with you on, having maybe discussions about what can we do to, if there's a way to move the needle on the feeling of workers about, actually returning to work. So far, it's the battle we haven't won. And the numbers are, it's all very evident.
I did see something today, though, that gave me great hope. First time in forever, I saw a sign on the parking lot of the ferries in Vallejo, lot full.
That's good.
That was nice.
That is good news. So, but thank you for the question. Do we have another question? I see one. I don't think it's a question. It's just no. Anyone else signed up?
No one has signed up.
Anyone wish to comment on item number 11 who didn't sign up? Okay, let's take a motion on the item. I don't think we did that.
I'll move.
We have a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. So thank you. And this is this report. It's a pretty important report. It really shows where things are headed. So go ahead, Melanie. Please call the roll.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
and Director Intensely.
Yes.
The item passes.
Thank you. Thanks for the work on the planning that went into that. So item number 12 is public comment for non-agendized items. Are there any folks signed up to speak on items not present on the agenda?
No one has signed up to speak.
Anyone wish to make comments to the board of directors on anything on your minds?
Nice comment.
Wish to share? Could be nice.
Nice comment.
Nice would be great. If not, I'll move toward we'll close the public comment period. I wanted to adjourn the meeting in honor of former ABAG Executive Director Ezra Rapport. So Ezra was the head of ABAG from 2010 to 2016, and he was deputy director from 2008 to 2010. He died on October 7th after a long bout of cancer, I think for over a decade. And he was involved in creating original Plan Bay Area. He was a real leader and a thoughtful person on issues around public planning. and how to make the most of our urban environment. Before he worked for ABAG, he worked in the California State Senate for Senator Parada. And back in, I think it was 2007, he really was the person who wrote the legislation ultimately that became SB 976 that created the WETA. So he was deeply involved in it in 2007, but he was involved in ferries before that in different capacities, including as a deputy city manager, I believe, in Oakland. So he was a really big fan of this work, really passionate about it, and it's a big loss. So if it's okay for the record, I'd like to adjourn the meeting in honor of Ezra Rapport. With that, thanks for coming, and thanks for being on screen, and appreciate us three directors. We got us through, right? And meeting's officially adjourned.